first reading this morning is from 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 14. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Aram, was a great man and in high favor with his master, because for him the Lord had given victory to Aram. The man, though a mighty warrior, suffered from leprosy. Now the Arameans, on one of their raids, had taken a young girl captive from the land of Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he could cure him of his leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his Lord just what the girl from the land of Israel had said. And the king of Aram said, "Go then, and I will send along a letter to the king of Israel." He went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of garments. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you my servant Naaman, that you may cure him of his leprosy." When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to give death or life that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Just look and see how he is trying to pick a quarrel with me." But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent a message to the king. "Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come to me, and he may learn that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and halted at the entrance to Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to him saying, "Go, wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." But Naaman became angry and went away, saying, "I thought that for me he could surely come out and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and would wave his hand over the spot and cure the leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of the Damascus, better than all the rivers of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" He turned and went away in a rage. But his servants approached and said to him, "Father, if the prophet had commanded you to do something difficult, would you not have done it? How much more when all he said to you was, 'Wash and be clean'?" So he went down and immersed himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. His flesh was restored like the flesh of a young boy, and was clean.
I love that story. How often do we have an extraordinary need, and then God fills it in an ordinary way? It's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. Our next reading comes from the book of Galatians, from Paul's letter. Chapter 6, verses 1 through 10. I invite you to listen now for the word of God to you. "My friends, if anyone is detected in a transgression, you who have received the Spirit should restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness. Take care that you yourselves are not tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. For those who are nothing think they are something, they deceive themselves. All must test their own work. Then that work, rather than their neighbor's work, will become a cause for pride. For all must carry their own loads. Those who are taught the word must share in all good things with their teacher. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For you reap whatever you sow. If you sow to your own flesh, you will reap corruption from the flesh. But if you sow to the Spirit, you will reap eternal life from the Spirit. So let us not grow weary in doing what is right, for we will reap at harvest time if we do not give up. So then, whenever we have an opportunity, let us work for the good of all, and especially those of the family of faith." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
In the middle of World War II, After fleeing Paris and eventually joining the French resistance, Albert Camus wrote a story, an essay called The Myth of Sisyphus. In case you're not up on Greek mythology, which I am not, Sisyphus was a trickster god who was punished by the gods by being forced to roll a boulder up a hill, only to have the boulder rolled back down when it was almost to the top and to be forced to start over again. And Sisyphus was forced to do this for all eternity. And Camus, I'm still not aware of how to pronounce that very well. And Camus takes a look at this story from his perspective in the French resistance, and he sees a hero for his age. In his life, Camus says, Sisyphus had a passion for life that was unrivaled. He escaped Hades twice. He put death in chains. He ratted out Zeus for a spring under his city. And now, in the underworld, his punishment is to endure life without meaning or success, an effort that will never produce success or reward. And Camus points us right to that moment when the boulder starts to roll down the hill. Sisyphus, his task almost complete, has to turn and walk back down the mountain and start all over again. And in this moment, Camus says, we have to believe that Sisyphus is happy. Because it's not the success that brings joy. It's the struggle for that. It's the struggle itself. What he seems to be saying is that it's not necessarily the summit that makes life worth living, but the struggle to reach the summit. And the struggle is worth it, even if we never make it to the top. In our reading for today, we're reading from Paul's letter to the Galatians. Paul's writing to the Galatians about his vision for Christian life. Since Paul left the churches in Galatia, there are a number of churches that he's writing to. They're all sort of in the area in western Turkey, or that is modernly known as Western Turkey. And since he has been with them, some other Christian teachers have been there, and they've told the people in Galatia that they need to convert and adopt all of the customs and practices of first century Judaism in order to be saved, and including circumcision. And Paul has heard reports from people in Galatia, maybe from somebody else, that this is going on, and Paul is writing to say, no, wait, you do not have to do that. He says, what saves us is Christ, and not our own efforts. But having made that argument, Paul now has to explain what is necessary for Christian life. If they don't have to follow Jewish law, then do they have to follow any laws? If we read the book of Corinthians 1 and 2, we know that there are some people that assume that they did not have to follow any laws. And I imagine that Paul is writing from experience when he tells the Galatians that that is definitely not the case. But still, the question he has to address is, if we're free from the law, and we can't save ourselves with good behavior, can we do anything that we want? So the last 2 chapters of Galatians involve Paul explaining what it is to live a Christian life, how Christians should live and behave. In the passage we talked about last week, we heard from Paul that it's all summed up by the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That which is hateful to yourself, do not do to your neighbor. And then Paul lists out some of the things that are hurtful to our neighbors and some of the things that are great for our neighbors. And he gives us this information to help us pursue neighborliness. And now Paul is continuing with more advice on how to be neighborly to each other. Treat offenders gently. Lean on each other, but don't get lazy. Do work that is worth being proud of. Bear one another's burdens. This is how you will fulfill the law of Christ. Whenever we have an opportunity, let us work together for the good of all, and especially those in our family of faith. That one sounds familiar. We welcome everyone, we take care of each other, and we help people in need. Is our mission statement not pretty close to what Paul is telling us there? To live by this is simply to take the chances that you get to do something good, to do something worth doing. Did you receive a blessing? Share it. Is your friend suffering? You can share that too. In any given day, you have an opportunity to do something good for someone, even if it's just a swallow an unkind word, and it's worth doing. I think you can take just about any one of the things that Paul has written and cross-stitch them or needle point them and put them in your kitchen, and it'd be worth looking at every morning when you eat breakfast. But I think the most difficult one is in verse 9. So let us not grow weary in doing what is right, for we will reap at harvest time if we do not give up. What Paul is saying is don't let doing good become a burden to you. Don't let it wear you out. But honestly, that's a lot more easily said than done, isn't it? What Jesus asks of us is hard. Doing good can be exhausting. And one look around the world tells us that there is far more good to be done than there are doers to do it. As Jesus said, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. But ultimately, doing good without being weary comes down to our motivation for doing it. A lot of times we like to talk about the benefits of doing good. And doing good, doing what is right, taking care of other people, bearing one another's burdens, it does have often some positive effects, right? People who volunteer live longer and have happier lives than people who don't. People who participate in a community of service get real, tangible health benefits for it. Doing good for somebody else, it feels good, right? It feels like you're making a difference. You feel like you've become a part of something bigger than yourself, or maybe you've contributed in some way to the work of the world. People say thank you. You get awards sometimes. They bring you up and they clap for you sometimes. Or you can simply see that what you've done has made a difference, and that feels good. But ultimately, getting attached to the feelings of good around doing good is a little bit dangerous for us. Because what happens when it doesn't feel good? What happens when we're called to do a task that is thankless? What happens when we're called to do a task that is dangerous? What happens when we're called to do a task that is going to cost us our friends or our neighbors or things that we want to have? Ultimately, doing good doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels fruitless. Sometimes it feels like rolling a boulder up a hill only to get close to the top and watch it go all the way down again. If we don't want to get weary, if we don't want to let doing good become a burden for us, we have to orient our thinking differently. Not about the rewards that we receive in the here and now for the good that we do, but instead about God's rewards for us. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to orient our lives around confidence in God. We have to believe what Paul tells us, that we will reap at harvest time. If we spend all our time reaping or focusing on getting rewards in the here and now for the good that we do, we will miss it. And we will grow weary, and we will lose the energy and the capacity to do the good that we know we want to. So first, we have to know that we know how the story ends. The story of Good Friday continues with the resurrection. And the story of our world concludes with its redemption and the holy city, in which there is no more tears and no more crying and no more pain, but joy forever. Don't get caught up in those rewards that you might receive now, however nice they are, because we will reap at harvest time. Second, you've got to learn to love doing what is right, regardless of whether or not it makes you feel good. Instead of loving the feeling of getting to the top, we have to love the feeling of making our way to the top. We have to learn, like Sisyphus, to love the struggle, to love the choice to do good, not the results of doing good, but the adventure itself. If we want to maybe make a comparison that's a little bit less highfalutin than Albert Camus and his essays, Miley Cyrus has a song called The Climb that says roughly the same thing. That is, when it comes down to it, we've got to learn to love the adventure of doing what is right rather than the rewards of doing what is right. The way we keep doing good from becoming a burden on ourselves is to learn to love doing good. And that means practice. You don't learn to love jogging by jogging once. I tried it, it did not work. You learn to love jogging by putting it into the routine of your day and incorporating it into your life so that it becomes a part of who you are. This is true for any type of exercise. I don't want to pick on jogging because it's miserable. There's plenty of other things that you can include in your life. Fred Clark wrote recently that in trying to help others, we cement who we are becoming. And also in not trying to help others, we do the same thing. The little things that we do, those are what build us in who we are. Character is something that happens by accretion, this slow accumulation of little actions, little opinions, little experiences that slowly cement us into who we are. And if we don't practice, we will find that the process of turning around is much harder than we think. So we have to practice doing what is right, learning to love doing good for its own sake and not its rewards. That's how we generate the ability to do it without getting worn out. One of the most profound aspects of ministry is getting to be with the saints of God. And you get to be with the saints of God in big things, and you get to be with the saints of God in little things. It's baptisms, it's hospital visits, it's lunch or snacks or drops by the office. And what you find is there are incredible people of faith around you all the time. I remember I was driving in Texas. I was riding in Texas with somebody on the way to visit her husband. She was in her 80s, early 80s. She had some rough times. She had a couple falls in the last year. She lost the use of her hand. And her husband had severe dementia. And every day, she drove half an hour to a nursing home where he was. And I asked if I could come with her. I thought it was a good chance to check in with her and a good chance to go and visit him as well. And so we drove up there, it took a half an hour, and when we got there, she went to his room and she wheeled him out into the common area. He wasn't verbal. He could shake his head yes or no, or you could kind of try to judge by eye contact. And she sat down next to him, and she got out from her bag a bag of chocolate-covered pecans and a Coca-Cola. These are his favorite foods. And she sat there, and she hand-fed him pecans and gave him little sips of Coca-Cola. When he lost one, she caught it. When he dribbled, she wiped it off. And I was just floored by that level of devotion. Even between a husband and a wife. It's amazing. It's amazing what love can do. And I didn't know how to ask it, but I knew I had to ask him on the car ride home. I tried to figure out how to phrase it. You know, how do you not get weary? How do you not get overwhelmed? How do you not lose your energy, your ability to do something? And the words that came out were, I just don't know how you do it. And she was a meticulous driver. She didn't take her eyes off the road, and she just kind of said, I don't know what else there is to to do. I don't know what else you could do. And I really think she believed it. Yeah, there were dozens of people in that home that were not getting their favorite snacks every day a little bit after lunchtime. But for her there wasn't any other option than to drive an hour every day to hand feed snacks to somebody who didn't know her name. I think about that. I think about that a lot as I try to figure out how to live my life, how to do anything with the level of care and devotion that she did everything. And I'll tell you, this isn't in any way an exceptional story. It's not even vaguely unusual if you sit down with people and talk to them about their lives and what they do for each other. We said goodbye last week to George Gruber. He was somebody who was game for anything, to learn anything, to do anything, to join anything, to help out in any way. And he loved it. And that's who he was. And I can't help but think that maybe they have the key to what Paul is talking about. Maybe they know how not to get weary doing what is right. You have to learn to love the doing. You have to learn to love the duty. Learn to love the struggle for the heights, even when it doesn't feel good, even when it doesn't seem like it's worth it, even when it is tiring and disillusioning and overwhelming. Even when the ball that you rolled almost all the way to the top rolls right back down again, you have to look down at it and be happy. Because what you're doing is worth something. And we will reap the harvest. So when you roll a ball all the way up a hill, don't be disheartened. Find ways to practice doing what is good. Know that there are opportunities every single day for you to do that. And eventually, it will come so naturally to you that there won't be any other way. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.